In my last video about the fascinating subject of MLA formatting, I talked about why we use MLA formatting and how you should set up your document to meet the standards of that style guide. And today I wanted to show you how to construct a works cited page, which is kind of an important part in the code that is MLA formatting. So a works cited page appears at the end of a document. And it lists, as the title implies, all of the works that are cited within your text. So let me just take a second to show you what I mean. If you look at this paragraph here, you'll see that the author of this essay has cited evidence from various sources. And so here's a quote. And then at the end of the quote, there is something in parentheses, information in parentheses. That is called a parenthetical citation. More about that later. All of these parenthetical citations should connect to something at the end of the document called a works cited page. So you see in the information here, it says fearless girl. If we scroll all the way to the end of the paper, you should see, here it is, a works cited entry that begins with that same information. So now the information is connected and someone reading the paper can see that citation. And if they're interested, scroll to the end of the page and see a little bit more information about that source. Let's look at another one. Okay, so here we see another citation from this source. Charging Bull artists want removal of fearless girl statue. And there's information that the writer of this paper has pulled from that source. And so there should be on the works cited page a corresponding citation, and there is. Charging Bull artist wants removal of fearless girl statue. Now, those two sources that I just showed you have titles as the first item in their works cited entry, and that is why there are titles in the parenthetical citation. But look at this source. This source names a particular author. Okay, so let's see if we can go into the paper and find that particular source. Let's see. Oh, here's one. It's not the same source, but it's the same idea. McFadden is the author of the source that she's pulling from here. And let's see where that appears. Here, McFadden, Robert T. Okay, so that's basically how these works cited entries are used. They're used to connect to internal citations. Nothing on the works cited page should lack a parenthetical citation that corresponds with it. So even if you read other things, if you don't cite them in the paper, you don't put them on the works cited page. Just looking at the formatting, a few things to note. One, it is connected to the document. It is on its own separate page. It is titled Works Cited. And then, of course, the header is available there, the author's last name and the page number. The entries are alphabetical by the first letter of each entry. Okay. And then you can see it's not numbered. There's no extra formatting like bold or bullets or italicizing the title of the page works cited. And instead of numbering or bulleting, we use what's called a hanging indent. That means that the first line of the entry goes all the way out to the margin, and then every line underneath it is indented. Okay, so, and there are no extra spaces between entries. So that's what it should look like. Now, the next question is, how do you create these works cited entries? Because they're all in very specific order, and every different type of source is cited differently. So this is where it can get a little frustrating and tricky and detail-oriented, but realize that there are lots of resources to help you with this. It's not like you have to memorize a set of rules. You would just want to make sure you know how to use your resources. Resources include style guides, which I'll show you in just a second, but resources also include your friendly librarians. The librarians know all about MLA formatting, and they can be a good source to help you. Also, writing labs at your college can help you, and of course, your professor can help you as well. Okay, so let's imagine for your paper, you wanted to cite a journal article. So I'm gonna go to a style guide called Owl Purdue Online Writing Lab. And there are lots of different kinds of style guides out there. You can even purchase a book but there's so many free sources. I recommend just starting with that. Okay, so if we go to OWL Purdue, you'll see over here, there's an MLA style guide. And if you look here on the menu, it shows you how to do a works cited page basic format, books, periodicals, electronic sources, and other common sources. So as I said, all different types of sources are cited a little bit differently. Let's start with a basic one. Periodicals, that would be like journals or magazines that come out periodically. And so it shows you on this page how to cite that. So if it's an article in a magazine, you list the author or authors with a period, title of the article, and the title of the short work should be in quotation marks and all the major words capitalized. Title of the container work. So in this case, container work means it contains a bunch of smaller things. So the title of a magazine would contain many different articles, and that should be italicized and also capitalized. And then the date in MLA format, which is day, month, and year, comma, pages. So here you can see an example of what that would look like. Now that seems pretty straightforward, but sometimes there are other issues that can make it a little bit more complicated. Like what if you have multiple authors, or what if you have no author, or what if you're citing an advertisement? So one thing you can do is you can kind of go through these different entries here on a style guide, and it shows you how to cite all different types of things, everything from journal articles to an entire website to a page on a website, an ebook, even citing an image or a tweet. Emails, they're what you can cite, they're everything you can think of, every type of text you can think of, there's a way to cite it. So one thing you can do is kind of go through a style guide like this and try to find something that matches the type of source you have. But another way you can approach this is to Google it. So MLA citation for an advertisement. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm going to look for kind of a more credible source. Usually that's going to be something that's published by a college library. So let's see here on this one. This is Columbia College from Vancouver, Canada. We'll check to make sure it's MLA citation, because as I mentioned in the previous video, there are different styles for research citations. And in English class, we always use MLA. So make sure it's MLA. And then it gives you examples of how you would go about doing that. There are also citation generators. One of the most commonly known is EasyBib. And for EasyBib, it kind of goes over the basics and overview, and then you can plug in information that will help you to develop a citation, but you still want to check your work and make sure that you are, that it generates a proper citation. So here, what kind of source do you have? Let's say it's a film or online video, and then it asks, you can click create manual citation, and it will ask for certain information about the source, and it will put it in the proper format. So this can be a little daunting. I understand that there's a lot to absorb and a lot of rules to think about, but the most important thing is you understand overall how a works cited page works in conjunction with those citations, so that the point of all of this is to make sure that it's very clear where you got your information from. So if you run into an obstacle and you're really confused about how to create that citation, reach out to the resources available to you, and don't just sit there and sweat and worry. Just really try to reach out and use the resources that you have available to you, including your friendly professor. And we'll try to help you get that generated and set up just the way it's supposed to be. And you'll have a successful paper at the end of it. So that is a works cited entry in a nutshell. Right on.